Hello and welcome back to God's Glory and Men's Real Stories. I am your host, Robert Moore. I'm glad you guys could join back again today. Looking forward to this episode. And today, as always, I hope that you can join our circle of men. Hopefully you can sit down, kick your feet up, and more importantly, sit back and find healing and comfort. But most importantly, feel God's love and see God's glory in men's real stories. On today's episode, I have a guest that I'm really happy he could join me on this episode. Me and him, we talk a lot. We definitely have long conversations, deep conversations. And I've known him for probably going on 6 or more years. But the guest that I'd like to welcome today on today's episode is my brother-in-law, Stephen Canady.
You got it.
Canady, I got it. Yes. I don't know why. We were just talking about how I can be a little tricky sometimes. So welcome. So glad you could join me today. Yeah. I guess I'll take some time out and let you introduce yourself. Give yourself as I like to say that quick social media or that resume bio, that quick little punchline of who you are.
Okay. Well, my name's Stephen. Like Rob said, I'm his brother-in-law by choice. I've been in Charlotte my whole life. I was born here in 1979, so I'm going to be 43 this year, over the hill. Feeling every little bit of that. Been here my whole life. My parents still living, still here in Charlotte. Been married to my wife going on 6 years now. And we have 3 kids together. One's graduating, so as we're getting older, our kids are getting older.
That's right. Congratulations.
And then so just working, living the dream. Whatever or however they paint it for us. That's what I'm just here. And, doing everyday life.
Okay. Very cool. So tell me, it's funny when I remember when I approached you about thinking about jumping on and having a conversation with me. It's funny. I was like, yeah, it's going to be no different than a lot of the conversations we have. We just sit back and we just talk about different things that are going on in life. I mean, we've had plenty of these conversations, either around the fire or around a cigar or something like that. So I guess my first question to you is, and it's funny because I'm sitting over here and we were just talking about like being an 80s baby. I'm an 80s baby, with my hot rod shirt on. What was it like growing up? Because you're pretty much an 80s baby as well. What was it?
Well, yeah, just the year 79.
79, yeah.
I lived mainly through the 80s. Yes.
Okay. What was it like growing up in the 80s? What were some of your fond memories?
Members only jackets, windbreakers, penny loafers, hairspray. Like honestly, my mom and dad, I guess the way we grew up and how I used to style my hair or however they styled it, used to have this thing called White Rain hairspray. And I'm telling you, man, I remember, they'd spray it down, especially for white folks, they have that thing laying down. That thing was hard, bro. You can honestly, hurt somebody if you sway one way or the other. But playing sports or anytime you sweat, man, if that thing started sweating on you, brother, your whole eyes would be glued together from how thick and how strong hold that was. So I remember hairspray, some different styles of music, just 80s was I prefer the 90s honestly more than the 80s in my opinion, but 80s was a different generation, man. It's way different than it is now.
So you said you'd prefer the 90s?
Oh yeah.
What was it like? What was it about the 90s?
By the time I was popping, man. 90s was about high school, finding myself or what I thought I was finding, and then when it started experiencing life for the first time. Just not through my parents' lenses, but through my own lens.
Right. No, you're right about that. The 90s.
With the music and just like I said, I think during the 90s, I was starting to go through middle school to high school, so that's that whole, span of, just where you're really starting to, for your own eyes, kind of your likes or what you think you're liking during that time, so 90s was good, or what I thought was pretty good.
Right. No, yeah. I couldn't have said that better because you're right. There was so much happened in the 90s. I mean, the music was like it took off. I mean,
hip hop. If you like hip hop music, with your Biggies, your Tupacs, your just any type of that rap genre was man, Outkast. There was a lot of good stuff that came out in the 90s.
But let's not hold on. Let's not forget the R&B now because
Jodeci, you have I mean,
Joe,
yeah.
you had man,
Boys
and
to
it's
Men,
like all
Boys
of them
to
running
Men.
through my head right now, and I'm trying to spit
Friday
one
night.
out.
I mean, brother.
I mean, you had Babyface. Yeah, I was trying to say I mean, there was so many of them, and it's funny because we sit back sometimes and we're like, man, that's like a lost art. But I've actually come across so many R&B artists as of recently that I'm just like, woo,
You don't see that stuff.
that was soulful. Ooh, that was soulful.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, no, you're right. I mean, whenever somebody thinks R&B, they immediately think the '90s. At least in my opinion.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah. No. That was definitely.
I mean, that's back also when you had the hot box, the Gumby, you know, all those different types of hairstyles.
Right. So, what was one of your fondest childhood memories during that time? One that like just stands out that you just. I mean, I know you talked about the hairspray, but like.
Yeah, during the '90s or just as a young fella. Period.
Just in general, like as a young fella. Period. Like when you were like at that point. You know, and you're right, because I remember the '90s stand out more than anything because you're at that point. I think that's when we were really growing into ourselves. But what was one of those childhood memories that at the time when you went through it, it was just like it was almost that memory that whenever you see somebody from your past,
right,
you immediately think of that, or you immediately go back to that thought process or that memory, that fond memory of yours.
Okay, man, I guess the best memory as a kid, I would say, you know, honestly, as a little kid, like let's say elementary school, you know, probably my fondest memory. Because I got a couple of them, but there's at different stages. I just remember having no stress. You know, you go out and play with your friends, whether it's ride a bike, playing in the woods, or, you know, playing ball or whatever the case may be. It was almost just like life. You just, almost like you're kind of in your own world, you know what I mean? There wasn't no stress. It's kind of what you have to deal with now as far as with work or with family or with just everyday life, what you see on social media. You know, you're just kind of, you're kind of in your own little world, man, playing with your friends, doing life. You might have had arguments, but you moved on, and life was simpler, I guess it seemed.
Right.
It kind of seemed simpler. And then as you got older, I would just say begin to find your freedom as far as like, you know, getting your license, hanging out, you know, kind of being able to, you know, have the freedom to go do kind of things, whether hang out with your friends or, you know, go to the movies or whatever. So when I see like my son, you know, getting his job and starting to, you know, he had his, got his license and stuff, it brings it back to where, okay, I remember when I got my first job, or I remember started, you know, thinking that you're grown and you learn your way far from it.
Right.
So, I mean, I guess it's those two different things, you know, the simplicity of being a kid and then also the freedom of becoming a young adult.
Right.
Those are probably the two things that when you see, I guess, other people experience or family members, kids getting old enough to kind of go through that thing, or your own family, kind of brings you back to where you were during that time.
Yeah, and it's funny because we look at them sometimes we may look at them and we're like, yeah, I've done that already. Like, matter of fact, I remember when but sometimes we have to kind of like slow down and say, you know what? I did do it, but now it's your turn. Yeah. Like it's your turn.
And even the good things and the bad things, because a lot of times we're like, how these kids, what I mean, how did they not get this? But I mean, we made some foolish decisions when we were young,
right?
Or whatever it be, you know what I mean. So it's hard also, you know, to teach them, but yet show them grace. But it's cool to kind of see life as they go through their own lenses, you know.
No, definitely.
I think for the most part, it's probably a lot of similarity, maybe cut differently, but kids, you know, you see them experiencing kind of the same thing you experience, but it's just different. You know?
Yeah, no, and it's funny because if Justin was joining us today, I'm pretty sure he would have been like, wait a minute, members, he would have listened to everything and be like, you guys are whack. And it's funny because think about it, we used to say the same thing. We used to say the same thing, like,
you guys them acid wash jeans in the 80s, dog, them stone wash, dog, you'd be rolling them up, dude, crisscross, all these different things.
Right. You guys.
Or when Tommy Hilfiger and Ralph Lauren first came out, Colors, you know what I mean? Bro, I mean, we all those different things. It was just a fad.
Okay, so you know what? So question. All right, so I got a good one. And it's funny because me and Justin debate this all the time. Was there a time where we wore socks with our sandals or slides in our run?
If we did, I mean, you probably got clowned. I don't remember that. I mean, maybe some folks that just probably didn't care what they looked like probably rocked it like that, but it was never a fad.
Right.
In my opinion, and from what I can remember.
Okay, because
at least the streets were, at least where the schools I hung out with, if you rock that, you gonna get clowned. I mean,
right. Okay. So he gives me a hard time for wearing no socks with my slides. Now he's like, yeah, nobody goes without socks with their slides. I'm like, okay, so when would you take your socks off with your slides? He's like, only like if I'm going to the beach. That's the only reason I would ever take my socks off if I'm wearing slides. And I'm like, okay, I don't remember that phase, because a lot of times the phases are recycled. But I thought that was so interesting. I was like, okay, hey, look, man, I don't have to get it to try to understand you. I want to understand you exactly how you are. I'm not trying to change you. I help me understand it, you know. So maybe if I decide to wear socks with you one day, I get why my feet are sweating in these socks with these slides on.
I think it was more the older crowd would wear those white old pasty socks with like some old. Or I mean, back that's when we had Birkenstocks, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Birkenstocks.
Well, okay. So Birkenstocks are back. Okay, Birkenstocks are back in now, and I don't think I ever wore Birkenstocks. I didn't. But
I went through a little grunge stage where it looked like I was like, I mean, Birkenstocks. Yeah, I rocked them.
Because I mean, it's funny. My son tried to explain to me Birkenstocks, and I'm like, yeah, no, I don't think I was ever really like, and I didn't have a huge. I wasn't really big on clothes. I didn't have a lot to choose from as a kid. My mom got me the bare necessities. But like the crazy thing is that there's a lot of styles that he tries to sell me on, and I'm like, I don't know if I can pull that off. I'm definitely not trying to look like the older guy who's trying to be young again. Right. But there's still a lot of styles that I can enjoy. All right, so look, I got it. Okay, cool. I got another question for you. So, what would you say? Or tell me about how you met your wife, Ashley.
Okay. Well, to start off even before that, I was previously married about 11 years. For 11 years, that ended up not working out, so got separated. With that marriage, had 2 girls, Aubrey and Eliza. So had them at the time, and me and the ex split, and then was separated for a while, and then. Through Ashley, met her at church where we were both attending, and just happened to sign up for junior high. Why would I ever sign up for? You were talking about earlier about how the Lord kind of uses opportunities when you're like, I would have never chose that. I don't even really like kids at the time, to be honest with you. So at this time, I hate kids. I was already done with kids.
Right.
I'm like, the reason why I really put up with them is because I had to, because they're my kids. But any other person's kids, I really have nothing to do with. But yeah, I signed up for this junior high snow tube trip as a chaperone, and lo and behold, Ashley was there as a chaperone with her son, and we just ended up talking, clicking, and then the rest is history. We were probably dated for about a year, and then we got married, and then now we're doing blended family.
Oh,
there's another network for this. Blended families.
The crazy thing about it is funny. I actually ran into a group or a podcast called Blended Family, Blended Families for the Kingdom or something like that, which I thought was really interesting. Put together the perfect blended family.
He's trying to. It's been some. I mean, it's hard. It's tough. Blended family, learning like. Especially when you've already kind of been established. She had a son. Previously I had 2 girls, so she was used to a way that she would. Whether raise or instruct, teach, discipline her kid. I've been used to same thing, doing different life maybe a certain way. And so then when you do blend that in, there's sometimes some kinks and some challenges. But yeah, man, I mean, honestly, through the first foremost the Lord, just wisdom through counseling. We're walking on we've had to die on certain hills that like humble ourselves, say, okay, maybe this is how I'm used to, but learn how to adjust and compromise, and then still on certain values hold on that you're very strong about. Hold on to those and work together, and learning how to do it together. It's been challenging, but man, I think when you find someone that's willing to like walk through no matter what, dude, it makes it a little bit easier, So it's been challenging, but it's also been because I mean, it's sharpening me too. It's teaching me how to, I guess, not always get things the way that I would want them, or my expectations. I've had to learn to to like change in a way, not that you lose yourself, but you learn to like how important is this to me, you know what I mean? And
right.
This is really important to the other, learning how to compromise and
right. No, I get you. No, I can definitely dig that. So it's funny you spoke on like not only blending a family, but having to learn how like both of you parent, your parenting styles, kind of meshing that, understanding, how do you do this? Okay, well, this is how I've been doing it for so long, and then sometimes that may not work well with the other, and that I can't do that. So, what would you say? What would you say helped you guys along that way, as far as trying to put that, like, what helped kind of keep things together from you guys wanting to, like, pull away from different things or get frustrated based on how the other was doing it? What was it that kind of helped you guys work through a lot of that to eventually be on the same page and be able to coexist, all of you together?
I think in my opinion, for us, I think what's been the essential glue has been first having, I think, a desire to be a follower of Christ, because I think if you take that without there, I could still have my own expectations or whatever. But if I'm trying to do it in my own strength, like meaning like me muster up the ability to lay this down. A lot of times, selfish arises as back up, and you feel a lot of times. You might say, I'm not gonna argue this time.
Right.
They do that. They'll say that one thing. Your wife might say that one thing that it's like, bam,
Really
game over. This time I tried. What I mean? But I think honestly, like, first desiring to have a Christ relationship, of being a follower of Christ. That's the first step, because that's teaching you to be less of you and more of Him.
Right.
And then secondly, really having a love for my wife, not through what she looks like, even though I think she's beautiful, or this and this, but having desire because, hey, I've committed to this woman because God put her in my life. He allowed her to capture my heart, and now I've want to commit to her. And sometimes it means, like I said, if it's not completely like a moral issue, sometimes you gotta lay down some things to do, whether it be the way you like certain things cooked or whatever. Like, Ashley loves a clean house, where I'm more lax. You know what I mean? So sometimes our personalities are just certain things drive us, but it's learning how I love this woman so much. First, I love Christ, but then secondly, I love this woman so much that it's worth it, even though sometimes I don't always get what you want.
Right.
But there's also moments as give and get. There's some moments where the Lord's doing the same thing in her eyes. She's having the same thing in her life. She's having to lay down things that mean something to her, but it's not a do or die situation. It's not worth it. So it's that give and take and learning how to love, selflessly,
No, I can definitely dig it. So tell me this. I mean, like, even with you saying that sometimes you having to kind of bend and sometimes you having to kind of compromise, I guess. Mm-hmm. I would say, do you ever feel like there are some compromises where you may feel as though you're losing a piece of you or who you are and what you may have, I guess I would say, what makes you and what makes you tick, what allows you to feel as though, okay, like I don't even know this guy anymore because I've given up so much that now the person I am now isn't who I desire to be. Have you ever felt that way?
Yeah, I think, but I guess sometimes it depends on what am I really losing, like, or what I think I'm losing. You know what I mean? Because sometimes that could be a good thing. Sometimes it could be. I could be thinking. I could think that my identity is wrapped up in a certain way, but really that's not what Christ sees in me or what He desires for me to be. I could be thinking, man, I'm getting my punk card pulled right now, dude. I can't believe. But to say to who, or what value is really, you know what I mean? Or like say if it's certain friends, like, I don't like you, I don't like your friends. Now you're having to give up your certain friends that maybe not be, whether are they bad friends or not, they might be the friend. She might just not like them, you know what I mean?
Right.
Not to say this, but I'm just giving examples. But in my situations, as far as with me and Ashley, there's probably been some things that have been challenged or brought up or talked about that I've had to, like, really to see, like, okay, am I losing myself? But honestly, right now, it might have been a split second thinking that I'm losing myself, but I don't think anything far as majors happened in our lives to where I feel like I am losing the makeup of who God created me to be. Might have been some things that I wasn't willing to give up at the time or willing to change about myself at the time, but it was really, I think, it was more like probably something that needed to change anyways, you know what I mean?
Right. No.
At this point of our life, I'm not saying like that won't ever arise, but where we're at now, nothing major to where I'm not losing something that shouldn't be lost. A lot of stuff that's needed to be changed in my life now probably would make me a better person, make me a better husband, a better father, and stuff that probably needs to change.
Right. So what do you feel you're doing or have done, or maybe even just kind of like searching out on how to maybe continue to evolve or make changes or make adjustments based on just how life continues to move forward. I mean, we're always growing and or at least we desire to always grow. And sometimes growth or change is it can be a tad bit, it's funny how nobody ever wants to change.
It can be painful.
It can definitely be painful.
It's not always fun.
No, especially when you're used to the comfort of what's normal, what you've been comfortable with, what you have been doing for so long. What do they say? Why fix it if
it's not broke, don't fix it.
If it's not broke, don't fix it. Right. So, like, what would you say, or how would you approach that? What would you say to that, as far as, like, how would you address that in your own life when it comes to certain changes or certain things that need to be adjusted? Because I personally feel as though, I don't desire to be the same guy I was last month. I don't desire to be the same guy I was last year. And if I'm not growing or if I'm not changing, for myself, for everybody around me, so that I can show up the way I want to show up, then I am stagnant, and what people are experiencing could be a version of me that maybe I'm not proud of. And we've talked about, you've heard me talk about how in my life right now I've made so many changes, and I'm growing based on the experiences I've dealt with, based on my childhood traumas, based on my young adult traumas, different things I've just carried, and the resentment that's come with that. How do you feel that is played in your life? What do you feel you can look back on and say, like, wow, yeah, like that there, it maybe it hit a tipping point or something like that. Maybe there, I hate when I hear this sometimes, but people having ultimatums when it comes to, like, well, it's me or the highway. It's you got to make the choice now, or what I brought to you right now. I don't want to continue to have to approach you about this, or say something about this, or bring this up. But sometimes it's not even from another person. I think I recognized in myself, like, man, you know what? That has been causing more damage to me or others around me. And sometimes it starts with us, like, saying, like, man, I've created a lot of damage with that right there. I've done a lot of damage, and I can recognize it before somebody else says it. I'm sure others are thinking it, but, like, yeah, that's done some damage in my life with the people around me, whether it be with my kids, with my spouse at that time, or whatever the case may be. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I feel like I think a lot of times, especially like if you're looking for, I think, like you said, you're either growing, you're either changing one way for the positive, or you're changing for the negative. I don't think you can stay still, if that makes sense.
Right.
You can't really straddle the fence forever. You're either moving or you're slipping. You know what I mean? It's either one direction or the other.
Right.
Which, I mean, either being positive, or you could be going the negative way. You know what I mean? In any direction.
Yeah.
For me, I think the tipping point for me was first realizing what the problem was. It finally, like, I guess, became aware it was me. You know what I mean? Because a lot of times it's easy to blame circumstance, it's the way you're brought up, which are all true and they all play a factor. But when it comes to the end of the thing, you can control. You can't control sometimes what happened in your past.
Right.
Where you're born, what happened to you. It's unfortunate, but
right.
You don't always have control of that. But what you do have control is how you move forward. And which going to be your direction, or how you want to go about it. So a lot of times you can do that blindly. You can do that from how you lived your past. You know what I mean? There's different ways you can go about it. But then once you see, like, once it becomes, I guess, aware in your heart, like how you want to be, whether it's a positive, you want to be a follower of Christ, then you become to see like how you are as truly as a person. And so you can either A, ignore it, or B, what do we need to do to begin to work on it? And it might not be an overnight fix. It might be, dude, this thing could be a season long. I mean, a long season.
Oh, yeah.
But for us, I mean, I became aware that, I mean, we go to counseling. Me and my wife now, we, learning for, through, for blended family, for each other, for marriage. How do you cope through this? How do I do all this through the eyes of the Lord? How can I be a godly father? And so we go to counseling, and I just honestly learned. I mean, I kind of knew it, but it was brought up that I'm a passive. That's hard to, it's almost like a sensitive thing or something. But I come find I'm a passive father, dude. I mean, it's like, okay, I guess that's what I've become, because a lot of times it's easy for me to give up the lead and the charge, because my wife now, she does a great job at it. It's easy for her because I think she's naturally wired that way. So it's easy for me just to allow her just to do it, and then kind of me just wash my hands clean of it, to where there's moments I need to be taking charge, because that's what God designed the marriage to be, and designed men to be leaders. And a lot of times we kind of can be submissive in a way to where we pass up that authority. You know what I mean? So
right.
So for us, going to counseling and taking outside advice from people that are experienced in it, and that helps us, because a lot of times it's when you're in the midst of, like, say if you're with your spouse and she's telling you one thing, it could be true, but it's harder for you to hear it. But when it's coming from an outside source, to where the walls are kind of let down, it's different. It's almost received in a different way. So
right.
But men, we don't like to. We feel like we're weak. That's the thing. One thing, even like saying that I'm a passive guy, passive leader in my home. It seems like I'm admitting weakness or something, but. Which it is, I need to be the other way around, but it's a lot of times men don't like to discuss situations, in the midst of while it's going on, because like I said, it's a sign of weakness. We rather deal with it when it's already too late. The problems done hit the fan, or by that time you could have worked through a lot of these little things early on in life if you're doing what you're doing with a brother right now.
Right. Well, I'm just curious, where did that thought of like a sign of weakness come from with being passive, or not necessarily? Because how sometimes they may say that, like, well, if you're not wearing the pants, you're not the man of the family, right. Or you're not the man of the house, or if you're not the ultimate breadwinner, if you're not bringing home all the bacon and allowing her to stay home and cook it, then you're not a real man. And all those different things that we've heard over time that have constructed who we are, who we believe we have to be. And you said that it made you feel like maybe like less of a man, or maybe not because you were passive. But I feel like sometimes that's one thing we're missing, in that if we can't be who we are and be vocal about that, if I can't feel safe enough to tell you that, hey, look, this is the role I would like to play, this is how I would like it to look, and it's not that I'm trying to be weak because that's what you may have heard from a friend, or how it may look in a different relationship, but based on our relationship, this is the role I play, and a lot of those stigmas, they kind of cloud our mind, because we start questioning ourselves on, well, am I less of a man? And I've recognized that a lot of the time we're our own enemy with those thoughts. We start to question how we have to be, or how our fathers were. And not to say that our fathers were bad men, but right. A lot of times it may just simply be that, what he was taught, how he was taught, what they taught us was what they had learned. And maybe who they had learned it from was ill-informed. Maybe how they kind of made it look for us. It was based on what they learned, and they never went back to question that, or never went back to say, what, maybe it is okay for me to allow my wife to be in charge, or be in control of things and stuff, especially in the areas that she's strong in, especially in the areas that she does really well. Does that make me less of a man? Of course not. Because it's how, like you said, you worked on this blended family, and in working on that blended family, it wasn't just about, this is how I'm going to parent, or this is the side of the bed I like to sleep on, or different things. But it was also kind of learning what both of your strengths, what your weaknesses were. And instead of saying, well, I just got to get stronger in that area, maybe it's like, okay, well, look, maybe I'll lean into the areas I'm already strong, and maybe I'll let you lean into the areas that you're strong in, and that doesn't make me less of a man. It just makes me a man who understands that my strength is not in living based on my father or my grandfather's rules, but more so living based on how I recognize that, I don't have to carry that torch anymore. I don't have to be him. I don't have to live up to what your fathers taught you, and you come in and we sit around and it's like, oh well, yeah, Stephen, you don't feel weird about letting her do that or whatever the case may be. It's like, yeah, no, it's like, it works for us. Right. And the great part is that, a lot of people, they skip on the whole counseling one, because a lot of people, what is the first thing that people throw up is that it's expensive. Okay, and let's just say it was free. It's covered under your insurance. Well, it's going to take up time that I got to spend working and in different things, and nobody really wants to invest in that. What made you guys decide that was a great investment for you?
Because we see the value in our family, and that's if you're really going to invest in what you see value in. So if you see value in your wife, if you see value in your kids, and there's areas that you can grow in, then you're going to invest in it. It's just like with working out. With you want to, you're going, if you're going to, the doctor said, hey, you're overweight. You need to lose 100 pounds, or you're going to die by the end of the year. 9 times out of 10, everybody, or it might be 10 times 10, they're going to work to lose that 100 pounds.
Yeah.
So I think we saw the value, and for us, that was the deciding factor,
Well, no, that's cool. It's funny. I actually brought that up in a talk I had with some students recently, where I was saying, how many of you guys actually go to the gym? Okay, so you're investing in your physical appearance. You're investing. How many of you go to the barbershop or to the nail salon or whatever? Okay, so you're investing in yourself. Okay, so how many of you guys are currently seeing a counselor or a therapist? That's where everybody just kind of gave me that look like, and I'm like, okay, so understand that investment in yourself, that investment in your mind, that investment in your emotional, your mental health, your emotions, that's hugely important. And I can understand how you would not see it that way right now, because in our minds, in my mind, when I was that age, everything's fine. Everything's good.
Yeah.
I'm good. I had a breakup recently. I'm good. I've bounced back from that. Or I had this situation happen, but you know what? I've forgotten about it. I've let it go. And the things that I've spoken about and I've talked about is that, it's funny how those little things that we've let go, we've forgotten about, what we really did was we just threw it in a bag and said, hey, look, I don't feel like dealing with it. The problem is we still carry that bag, and it's still with us. We're no longer really kind of letting it be on our focal front. But its patterns and all the things that come along with it, they're still following us because we're carrying it all. And we kind of muted it for a little bit. And I've recognized how, I think we've spoken about how sometimes those things, they eventually they show up in other ways. They show up in ways you're wondering, why the heck am I doing this? Why do I keep doing this? Mm-hmm. Like, and I'm sure you said before, where it's like, I don't know why I keep doing that. I mean, I know we all have. Like, I don't understand what I keep doing that for. And sometimes, if you really thought about it, you could probably pinpoint why it started, or what the reason was for you needing to do that. Because
what's your trigger? You know.
Yeah. Yep.
There's always triggers. Whether some people around Christmas time, for instance, if they whether they're alcoholics or something, sometimes they end up getting, because it's like a trigger from an emotional thing, or from a season. Who knows what someone might have passed away or whatever the case may be. So a lot of times people relapse. Because of a trigger or a song or. Whatever, it's just triggers. I think we attach ourselves, that's why, like, even with fear, you would go back to, maybe something you were, seeing a show when you were younger, but certain triggers, I think it's
right,
brings out those insecurities, and,
right,
or doing things like, why am I still doing this? I mean, even Paul says in the Bible, the things I want to do, I don't do. The things I don't want to do, I do. You know what I mean? So it's
right. No, that's good. So is it fair to ask, like, what's one of your triggers?
Probably failure. I don't want to fail. You know what I mean? Or, and if I, the way that I am, I'd love to make everybody happy, please everybody, and to not fail. You know what I mean? But when you fail, what you thought of yourself, sometimes I guess how, or not that it's that you get your, not like pride thinking about in a way of like, look at me, oh, these are my statistics or nothing like that. More, I want to be able, I don't want to look like a loser, you know what I mean? I don't want to fail. I want people to be happy with me, my performance at work, in my marriage, as a dad, as seen as a Christian, you know what I mean? That's why I think a lot of times we put on, as people, you put on, that's why you end up putting on those masks, because you ain't perfect. You know what I mean? You're not, you are going to fail. You know, you hope to, you learn through hard, you know, you don't want to be failing at the same things all the time. Sometimes it might be a hard season, but you want to be able to continue to have that heart of where you don't want to do it, you know, but that's why I think then that's why we end up putting on masks to where people don't really get to know you, because like, hey, I go see that side, you know what I mean?
Right. So is that so would you say that, like, okay, so if you're triggered by that feeling of failure, like you failed in this area, or you're not doing and you're not providing like you should, how does that normally show up? Like, what is, if you don't mind me asking, how does that normally, what is it in the shaking out as when you do get those feelings of failure and those feelings of like, man, I'm not carrying out my diligence of being the provider that I'm supposed to be, and I fell in this area? How does that end up showing up?
I mean, just a pity party on myself, because it's you know, like, as far as like, say for instance, I'm trying to think of an instance, you know, just like there's been times where just with me and Ashley, like there's been times where I've known that I've in the past have maybe carried myself in a way that I knew probably was going to rub her the wrong way, whether, you know, just not being just responsible or being kind with my words or how I treat her. And when I've allowed myself to get in that situation, man, I feel horrible. I feel like, you know, I've done it again. I feel like there's going to be, you know, eventually that I've messed up enough to where she's going to, you know, especially coming from a divorce, you know, where you've already lost, that it hits home again, like, man, what, so is she going to leave me now? Am I going to fail at this marriage too? Or so I guess and that's why sometimes I think it calls me to be passive. It all, like, a lot of stuff ties them together, because you want to be, okay, so what, you either tell her what she wants to hear, because, you know, I could, you know, if she's like, you know, the kids love vegetables, they need to eat vegetables. What do I know? It's right. Yeah. Do I care? Am I the same as passionate? I'm not. To be honest with you, bro.
Right.
But I gotta pretend like, yeah, I see what you're saying, baby. You know, yeah. But see what I'm saying? Right. But you can change little things. Now, there's certain things, obviously, I'm not going. You know, certain things you hold a stand to, but little things like that where you can kind of shake off or dust off. A lot of times you end up changing, being passive in certain situations like that, because you're afraid of, like, causing confrontation, don't want to rock the boat, right? You know, so it's the same thing with boss. There's a lot of times, you know, like, if you might not agree with the boss, you know, sometimes you might, whether it be morally, I'm not saying this is happening, but, you know, you could change the way morally, or talk a certain way, or act a certain way that, you know, you don't want to lose your job, or whatever the case may be. You end up changing, losing your true identity, or you know, what's deep down inside, who was crying out to be. Sometimes you can kind of look past it or overlook it to appease whatever else you're trying to get acceptance from.
No, I can definitely say I've felt that, and I've been there before with the whole acceptance. Even hit on the whole idea of even the fear of abandonment. And worrying about, like, if you don't please people, then they won't stay around. And
because I mean, honestly, my parents are still together, which is a blessing. But, you know, you see, like, the legacy they're living. You know, 40 or they're probably 50 years. I don't know exactly how long they've been married, but it's been a long time. So you see what they, you know, my grandparents before them, and how they've raised you with the importance of, like, for instance, marriage. So you're striving to, like, keep pace, or, you know, honor them and show them that you can accomplish the same things, because that's what's been instilled in you. So it's that pressure of being perfect, you know, especially sometimes when our parents fought, you didn't always see it out loud. I mean, a lot of times parents back in the day used to have arguments and stuff. Some of them, not everybody, but behind closed doors, you know, where you wouldn't see how situations were played out or handled. So, you know, I just always assumed my parents had a perfect marriage, you know what I mean?
Right.
And then as you get older, you're like, okay, they fought well. You know what I mean? They just didn't, they didn't argue or handle things in front of us publicly. It was more done privately. So
right.
So when you come in with your expectations of what a marriage, I never saw my parents do this. You get let, you know what I mean?
You get to let down.
You
feel like, man, I'm failing at this.
I've done messed up the first week. You know what I mean?
Right.
Dang.
And because you never saw it, you thinking that, man, I gotta be doing this all wrong. So do you feel like if maybe you had seen it, maybe if you had experienced it, if you had realized that all couples fight, that all couples sometimes feel like they fail in certain areas, would you still probably have felt like, man, I'm a failure? You know what? No, I'm actually.
Yeah, this is life. This is normal.
This is right.
And obviously, I mean, if you could especially see it get resolved in a healthy way, they might not. We might not agree on what the conflict was about. But I still love you, and we're still going to do life together, and we can, kind of agree, and whether it's wherever the coin toss of whether you don't come to like I say, an understanding, you might not agree and fix everything up there, but at least I respect my wife, and she respects, me to where it can be resolved, and we love each other. We just, it's just you're not 100% on the same page that day, but I love you enough to where we're going to work this out one way or the other, whether it's me kind of. I gotta lay myself down, or we meet somewhere in the middle, compromise somewhere. You know what I mean?
Right.
But see it done in a healthy way, resolution in a healthy way.
Right. No, that's
because you either got bad or you got none. Both of them bad.
No, you're
right.
See
what I'm saying? Either you get someone getting yelled at, beat up, that's bad. You know what I mean? But also, like, if you're never seeing it handled where you're thinking everything's like, if something does bad arises and you don't see it get handled in the right way, then you're like, man, then you start like, what did I do wrong,
Yeah, but the crazy thing is some people, that's all they've ever experienced. I mean, like, they've experienced the exact opposite side of the coin, where you may have never seen it. It's like, wow, this looks perfect. Some people, all they've ever seen is fighting. All they've ever seen is people putting their hands on each other, just so much stuff to where if they did experience just a calm, cool, chill relationship where the fight seemed slim, or they might have been mild, it's like, yeah, no, something's not right if I'm not putting my hands on you, or something's not right if I'm not raising my voice, or if we're not fighting the way I used to experience fights, and so that right there is normal to them, and so what's normal to you carry into life, and you reproduce that normal feeling. Yeah. Sometimes maybe you're even trying to change it in a man's in I guess in a way of speaking, and that, like, okay, well, if I can even recreate it with somebody else, but maybe make it look different, or maybe adjust it a little bit to where, I never liked this, but the whole time they're taking that piece from what they've experienced, what they saw, how their parents showed up, and how their parents showcased what a relationship's supposed to look like, what relationships are supposed to look like. I mean, it's crazy how we take so many things, and we always hear that thing of, like, just know your kids are watching you. They're watching you, and you really think, and I don't recall sitting back watching my parents, but it's crazy how, if I look back, I can see so many different traits that I got from my mom, and that I'm like, dang, I did start doing that. Like that's I never wanted to do that. There's certain things that were like on the top of my mind, like, I'll never be this, I'll never do this like my dad did, or whatever the case may be. But like, I don't realize that, okay, well, yeah, those might have been like prominent, but the little small things that you never realized that you were doing. Everything. Yeah. It's wild. But no, that's really cool. So what would you say, as like a closing question, what would you say that if you were to get the opportunity to if you could just make adjustments or change something, and you can't ever, I hate to think about, like, if I could go back and change things. No, the past is the past, and the beauty is the only thing that you have the opportunity to make adjustments on are you in the present for the future, and more importantly, seeing how what God's plan for you is instead of mine, and understanding that with that, all the adjustments going forward will be based on how He sees me, or what He wants me to do. But if there was anything that you could go and say, okay, at this point in my life, I recognize that this is something that, if it was as simple as a snap of a finger, I would no longer want to carry this. I would no longer want to deal with this. I would no longer want to feel this anymore?
I mean, to me,
I know
it's
that's
a
a
hard
deep
one,
one,
brother.
yeah.
And I don't even know if I can accomplish this one to the fullest until I'm probably dead. But I don't want to be selfish, man. I don't want to be selfish because I think when you do that, like with marriage, like I said, you start kind of building up walls. I think you don't trust nobody, honestly, when you start becoming selfish because you kind of consume with yourself. So walls build up to where you're like, protecting yourself in this certain area, or however you try to manipulate or orchestrate a way for the betters kind of you in the situation, whether it's even like going to hang out with something that your wife wants to do, your kids, one of your kids, you think I want to go outside and hit softball in this freaking 90-something degree weather, bro? Nah, but I mean, that little bit of time really means something for, my daughter asking me to do it. So I don't want to be selfish, man. I was like the other day, honestly, this kind of ties along with that. I was outside, looking at my grass and stuff, and it's been brutally hot, like, because the temperature just made me think about it. So, like, some of these areas are dying and stuff like that. But I noticed, because it's been so hot, I really haven't been paying attention because a lot of my grass is dead anyways. But
right.
I noticed in the process where before, especially if you're a lawn junkie and you care about your yard, the way fescue, cycling, you can relate to this, how you water and stuff you're putting on it, you're always watching for weeds and stuff like this. Well, I heard it was called wild Bermuda, but I allowed this grass, this weed or Bermuda grass that, kind of grows across the grass, you know what I mean, and stringy.
Yeah.
Well, I saw one patch, and the more I started observing, it's more and more and more. Where before I used to stay on top of it, and it would be very small. Now it's kind of taking over the whole thing. So, and I started looking and seeing this like fresh stuff where it was, where that stuff, like if the stuff that's been around for a while, if you let it go, to find the roots and to find where it begins it's going way over here to where you have to find it, and it's hard to pull up. But if you get it and you see it. This new stuff, when I saw the new stuff that was still the same grass, but it was hadn't set roots in yet, I saw it and it was easy. Dude, it just came right up when I picked it. So if I would, in my own life, if I can be observant of these so-called weeds or these things that my flesh wants to root to, and I know that it's not of the Lord or it's not going to benefit my family, my marriage, these little things that are selfish or of this world, if I can get them and spot them earlier on and begin to do whatever I got to do to kind of get them out, work through them. It's better to do it in the beginning instead of when they start setting roots, because it becomes hard. You become more dependent on it. It becomes more of you, who your identity is, instead of handling it in the beginning. And you're open about it. That's what I'm saying. Even talking about it with my wife, if I see certain things, whether it be if I was struggling with my eyes, what I see, especially being hot days with women and stuff like that, if I begin to struggle with that, confessing that thing and working on it in areas like that, if I'm becoming impatient because of how work's going or lack of sleep, lack of reading, lack of communicating with her, getting them in the beginning instead of like, I got it, I'm going to handle this. I can handle it later. Putting on the back burner and bro, it's too late. So just learning those two things, being less selfish and then more observant of what's trying to hold me down, bring me down, or ruin, take away something that I value, which is my wife and kids and just family.
No, I can dig it. No, that was a good answer. I like how you used the roots and the weeds and stuff as an analogy. That was really cool.
Yeah, because dude, I'm telling you, if it's not, whether you know how it is, if you're not spraying your lawn, if you're not treating it, bro,
you look up.
Whatever hard work you've done in the beginning, bro. You could have tilled your whole yard and it looks beautiful one season.
Right.
Before you know it, man, if you're not still watching, doing this, making sure it's all good, those weeds creep in, bro, your yard's done. All that hard work's done. And you got to basically till that beast up, start over again. So it's just, I just want to be observant, man, because a lot of times it's easy not to see, like you're saying, until you become self-aware of you're the problem or you allow, like I said, we talked in the beginning, and some things might happen, but now I'm in control of what's going forward. How am I gonna carry myself, especially when you become aware of the issue? You know what I mean?
Right.
I just want to be aware of it, man. I don't want to. I mean, you're going to fail, but I want to make whatever way I can to to do the best that I can. You know what I mean?
Right. No, I can dig it.
I don't know if that makes sense, but
No, it did. And it's funny because when you're listening to it from the other side, you're just like, yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. And that, you got to keep watching things. You can't, it's funny. I hear people sometimes say, well, yeah, I went to counseling for a season, but I don't think I need it anymore. And I tell people, the crazy thing is, as long as you're living, you're always going to need some level of counsel.
Oh yeah.
Because if nothing else, it's helping you through the growth. It's helping you through the things that you weren't experiencing the last season that you're experiencing now. So
we change, we evolve.
Yeah,
we're always evolving. Like things that get you upset now or don't get you upset. When you're older, people get stubborn and more set in their ways. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm saying. It's easy just to become like a robot or set in routine. You get caught in a routine, you get comfortable. And those blind spots, bro, you can't see, man. You don't see all those, detour ahead, road construction, slow down. Bro, and you're right up on it. You're like, dang, whoa, where am I at? And it's like, you can't even U-turn. You stuck, bro. You know what I mean? Right. It's like, so it's, I don't know, man. I just want to be more aware of hopefully the Lord can show me my problems. I can spot them before it's too late in someone else's. I mean, obviously you need those people, but I hope the Lord would show me where I catch on to him before it's too late,
Right. No, I can dig it. No, that's
because the problem's going to be there, bro. You know what I mean? You're going to have issues that rise up. I mean, it's just the way. That's what keeps us. If we didn't, then, bro, we wouldn't need Christ.
No, that's true.
You know what I mean? That's why I think a lot of things happen in people's lives because it's like it shows us our need for Him.
Right. Yeah. No, real, man. Tell me about it. Yes, sir. I agree with
Keeps
that.
Us humble, man.
Yeah. Well, cool, man. Well, hey, look, I appreciate this time, man. I appreciate the conversation. This is really cool. It's funny how we have conversations all the time, but sometimes every time we have a conversation, it opens up a different door to a different topic about different things. And so, I appreciate you joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
I appreciate the time. I appreciate all the listeners who joined in today and listen and hopefully you enjoyed the conversation and maybe it resonated with you to where you've been there. You can say, hey, look, I've experienced that before. Wow, and just allowing yourself to realize that hey, you're definitely not alone in this. This is nothing that you should feel like you're the only one going through these things or experiencing these things on your own. And hopefully, as I said, you can definitely feel God's comfort in all this that you're going through. You can feel as though it's something that one day in another season you'll look back and you'll say, wow, I went through so much and didn't think I could push through it, but you know what? I found myself on the other side of that mountain, and with Him walking with me, with Him leading me and me leaning on Him, I made it through that. So I appreciate you, bro. Yeah, I definitely appreciate you, love you, and look forward to future conversations. And thank you so much to all my listeners. And hey, we'll talk to you again on another episode. Thanks so much.
Hey, we appreciate you listening today and hope that if you enjoyed the conversation and stories, you will subscribe and listen to past and future content. Feel free to comment, as we would love to read your comments and pray over all of our listeners. Also, please follow us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Facebook at God's Glory and Minstrel Stories.
We understand as men how the thought of even facing your own story and the pain and hurt that come with that is a challenging task. But we don't want you to feel like you are all alone, because you are not. God has not forgotten you or left your side, and He loves you no matter what you have done. Your healing is important to Him. And we want you to have these free resources that already exist if you're considering giving up or need someone to talk to. The National Suicide Prevention Lifeline number is 1-800-273-8255. If you need support but are not in crisis, consider reaching out to a warm line if you need to talk to someone. Speaking to someone on these calls is typically free and confidential and run by people who understand what it's like to struggle with mental health. Find a local number by going to warmline.org.